So welcome everybody to Automating SAP SuccessFactors with UiPath. This is our third session that we'll have today, strategies and techniques. And if you want to go to the next slide, Umesh. So I'm Diana Gray. I'm the Community Marketing Manager for America with UiPath, and I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. So Pankaj, do you want to get started?
Yeah, thanks, Diana. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this great session, part three of the eight-part series that we are doing on SAP UiPath automations. And this is an exciting session which pertains to the SAP HR system, which is called SuccessFactors. So my name is Pankaj Vanga. I'm one of the co-founders at the Silicon Partners and a two-time UiPath MVP. And I with me Rahul and Umesh, a phenomenal team. We are partnering together to do this series. So I'll have Rahul introduce himself and then Umesh next.
Thanks, Pankaj. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Rahul Goyal, Senior Director. I work for a company called Alucian. We are UiPath customer and SAP customer, so we have both the technologies internally in our company, and I'm UiPath MVP for two times. Happy to join this series. I'm here to share our experience and our learnings as a customer as to how we adopted the journey toward UiPath and how the adoption of UiPath has streamlined our processes that are primarily running through the SAP systems. So happy to talk to that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. And myself, Umesh, and I'm working with the Silicon Partners as RPA Tech Lead. And so we'll be discussing the capabilities of UiPath around SAP automation and what are the different ways that you can do the SAP automation. And I hope you will have a better understanding of how we can automate success factors using UiPath. So feel free to post your questions as well. We'll try to answer your questions during the session and at the end of the session.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Next slide, Umesh.
So if you want to go to the next slide. Right. So this is this is the Northern California chapter. We run chapters all throughout Canada, Latin America, and the US. And we just encourage you to interact with people. So if you want to put your LinkedIn information in the chat, if you want to go to forum and talk to anybody, please do the UiPath forum. We really put these sessions on for you guys to engage with our audience, engage with our MVPs who come from all different backgrounds and partnering companies and partners. And if you have any questions that you'd like, you can just put those in chat. And then if you do have any topics that you want to cover in the future, just let me know. I'm diana.gray@uipath.com. And if you want to go to the next slide. So this is the third session, and we're going to be doing another session next week on the practical approach, part 4. So please make sure that you register for that. I will put that information in the chat as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pankaj.
Yes, thanks, Diana. So I think this is a very uh, interactive and a very technical series from an SAP UiPath standpoint. So I will encourage everyone in your network and yourself to register for these, and then feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn or emails or through Diana, and we'll be happy to help answer any questions. Even so, next slide, please. Just from my agenda perspective, obviously, we won't go too deep dive into what is SAP Success. We'll just give a high level overview. And then Umesh will cover some of the use cases and what type of automations are possible, some best practices that we have seen because we work with a lot of SAP SuccessFactor customers. And we'll have Rahul, as he said, share his experience as well on his automation and SAP journeys. So we and Umesh will do a live demo quick live demo as well. And then obviously you can always post your questions in the chat, or in the end we'll unmute everyone, and then you can ask those questions live too. Next slide. So SAP SuccessFactors is the HR IS system for SAP. It used to be a standalone company, and SAP had acquired them a few years back and integrated into their product suite. So it's a cloud-based, comprehensive human capital management solution, which pertains to basically core HR, obviously talent, payroll, workforce, and then time and attendance, performance goals. I mean, whatever you can think of in a HCM suite, SuccessFactors can cater to that. Next slide. I mean, what does SAP SuccessFactors do, right? I mean, obviously, core HR, Employee Central, payroll, recruiting, onboarding. You can obviously have your PMGM, which is performance and goals, sections and development, and also can have your compensation and benefit modules implemented as well as part of SuccessFactors. So it's a full suite cloud-based HCM solution for SAP. Next slide. Yeah, so I'd hand it over to Umesh to share his experience of what we have seen in this space in terms of automation, and then take it from here. Umesh?
Sure, Pankaj. So, when we talk about different use cases for asset success automation, right? So, the capabilities around UiPath that we have is there are majorly two types of ways that we can do the automation. First is using the APIs, the SuccessFactors APIs, and UiPath has an out-of-the-box package which is specifically designed for SAP SuccessFactors automation, and it provides some set of activities that you can see over here. That once we have the access to SuccessFactors API, we can execute any pre-built function that is there. We can perform get, insert, update, delete, search, and upsert records as well. We'll cover this in the demo. And then, so this is from the official UiPath channel, the package that is available. And apart from this, the UI automation can also be done on SuccessFactors using different ways. We will cover that as well during our demonstration. And so this is about the integration and the capabilities that UiPath provides for SuccessFactors automation. And that is also available on the marketplace. You will see how to download this and how to create a connection with SuccessFactors and how to leverage that. And talking about use cases, right? So this is about the capabilities, and talking about the use cases, we will cover two use cases, very generic one, and we'll also share one of the solution which PHP has created around SuccessFactors automation onboarding solution. I'll share some blog details as well so that you can have a look at it to get more understanding about the best practices and how it was automated, right? How the solution was created. Um, so these are some of the major use cases around SAP automation. There are a lot of use cases, but I would say the major ones includes generally about the onboarding process, or maybe around payroll process, right? Around the performance management as well. If you see, so all the verticals that you see here, right, around success factors, these processes can be automated using UiPath, and these are the 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 easily identified processes where we don't have to do any analysis where whether it can be automated or not. So these are the very standard processes, right? Uh, Coming to the types of automation. So like I just said, right? So there are two types of ways where we can do the automation as success factors. First is using the API, which we need to have certain privileges or accesses provided on the success factor side. And the next is using UI automation, where we generally use a browser to navigate to the success factors portal, and that how a normal a user would do, right? The steps, the bot will follow the same steps on a browser to automate certain steps, and that way we can follow these two approaches to the automation in success sector. We'll cover these two during the demo as well. So talking about the API automation, right? So for API automation, like I said, UiPath provide a SuccessFactors specific package, which can be downloaded from the UiPath marketplace. And this is the one where we can see UiPath.SuccessFactors.activity. So this is the package which has to be downloaded in order to use the API automation. And once this is installed and downloaded, you will see these are certain activities which comes by default with this, which includes the delete, execute functions, get record, what you just saw on the slide, in the previous slide. And then all these activities has to be within the SAP SuccessFactors scope. Right? And when we drag and drop SAP SuccessFactors scope in the main panel of your Apache Studio, we have to configure the connection as well. So when we configure the connection, we have to provide the authentication type. So the admin on the SuccessFactors side will provide the access, whether it's going to be a basic authentication or OAuth type authentication. And the same, the we can use the same connection for robot as well. So there are two types of connections that are required. One is during the design time, when we are creating the bot, or when we're designing the bot on Studio, we need to have a connection established. And then while running the bot, we can use the existing connection which was created during design time, or we can have a new connection as well. So we'll cover this as well, how we can create a connection and what are the requirements to have the API setup done. We'll cover this. And this package is officially supported by UiPath, and it follows all the best practices already. It is security compliant as well. So it's all uh, as a best practice, it is always recommended to use the API version of SuccessFactors activities. If not, UI automation can also be done with the on the browser. And then again, there are different ways of doing the UI automation on using any of the browser. And when we talk about UI automation, the selectors, it is done using selectors basically. And this is similar to what other automations are also done on the UiPath on any of the browser, right? So selectors are nothing but the path to the elements or the, the icons or the text fields that you see on any of the web pages, right? So selectors are nothing but a path which shows the bot where to type in, where to click, right? So all the selectors has to be used in order to use the UI automation. And there are different ways to use the selectors in UI automation, including stick selector, fuzzy selector. We'll cover this as well as a part of this session. What are these selectors? What does it mean? What is the best practice of using all these? Right? And if you are already familiar with UiPath Studio, um, uh, it is always recommended to use object repository as a best practice to use the selectors or create an element or web pages on an object repository so that the same set of activities or selectors can be reused at any given point of time in the code, right? So this is one way of doing the UI automation. The other way is using the inject JavaScript code. And this is the other way of doing this because since the SuccessFactors is built on UI5, and sometimes it is a little difficult to identify any selector and due to the dynamic nature of it. So it is always recommended to use JS script as well, which is pretty reliable in terms of selectors. If it is not doable with the UI automation selectors within UiPath, right? So we can also use inject JS script activity to perform certain steps. Alright, talking about types of automation, we'll cover some best practices. So, as a part of best practices, it is always recommended to you have a reusable component. So, and when we talk about reusable components, there are different ways of doing it. Uh, we can have a library created where we can reuse the same functionality again and again in the code, right? Um, the other part of is maybe we can create a workflow as well within the code where instead of creating a library, we can create workflow as well. But a reusable component is always something which always saves a lot of time to build the code. And if any changes come, right, it will be easier for us to make any changes on that specific piece of code, and it can reflect at all the places where it is being used. So the other is using the dynamic selector. So if we are using UI automation, it is always recommended to use the dynamic selectors in order to create a robust solution where if anything changes on the SuccessFactors portal, the bot will be able to handle it if it is made dynamic. If possible, if you have the API access, you can also use SAP SuccessFactors activity, which is always recommended because of the nature of APIs. The APIs are more robust and quicker than the UI automation, right? So if possible, SuccessFactors can also be automated using APIs. So you have that. Retry mechanism is always recommended as a part of exception handling, and try catch along with retry is always recommended in order to retry any certain steps where you might expect the bot to fail, and retry from a specific step is always recommended to use retry and the try catch to effectively implement exception handling. Right? Similarly, element exist along with different sort of activities is really helpful when we know that something might occur at any given point of time during the automation. Element exist does help to handle such situations where something might happen which is expected but not always. Object repository, again, it is always recommended when we are doing the UI automation, and this helps to basically organize and manage all the UI elements that we capture on any of the web page, and we can reuse those as and when needed. And it is really easy to make changes to those at any at one single step, and it is easier to maintain as well. So it is always recommended to use object repository for UI automation, not just SuccessFactors, but as a general practice when you are doing UI automation. Comprehensive log messages always help to debug and keep track of how the bot is running. So it is always recommended to keep log messages at all the required steps where it helps to debug and track the progress of the bot. If in case of any issues, it really helps in troubleshooting as well. So that was about the best practices. Coming to the demonstration of how success factors can be automated, right? So we'll start with the API part first. Right? So I'll show you. So as you can see, so there's the official package from UiPath, which is UiPath.successFactors of activities. And this is from the official channel of UiPath. And this can be installed on the studio. And once it is installed, you will have, let me just, so this is the one which I'm talking about. So UiPath.successFactors activities. You can install it. When you search it here, you will find it in the marketplace. Uh, This is from the UiPath official channel. Once you install and update this, you will have this under the integration part, right? And this is where you can see we have these activities available here once we install this. And in order to use this, we need to have a SuccessFactors scope already defined, right? So if I just simply drag and drop here the SuccessFactors scope, I'll have an option to configure the connection, right? And there are two types of connection. One is the basic, the other is OAuth type. When I click on the basic authentication, I need to provide base URL. Uh, I'll show you how the base URL can be fetched and the username and password. So you can get these details from the admin as well. And once you get the details, you can just simply test the connection and it will show you as a connection established. And once this is done, you can use the existing connection in the robot as well. Or you can create the same connection over here and just use it when running the bot, right? So as you can see, I'm using this one as a part of this demonstration where I have the base URL like this, where you need to provide the OData slash v2 because we are talking with the API server of SuccessFactors. And then the username and password, the username followed by the company name or company ID is generally considered as a username when we are dealing with the API integration and the password. Once you do that, once you test the connection, it will show you that the connection is successful. If not, you can reach out to the admin team to further troubleshoot this. But once it is created, once that connection is established, you can follow the rest of the steps within the automation, whether you want to maybe search some record and then after searching, you want to maybe update some record, some of it, and then maybe insert a new record, delete something. And if there are any functions which are already created, you can just simply execute those functions in SAP SuccessFactors. So once the connection is established, you can just simply click on the select over here, and then you will see three options when we do the search record. So in category, you will see a lot of options based on the use case or the process that you are automating. You can select the category, be it an onboarding process or an employee sample or a payroll processing or recruiting. You can select the category based on the process that you are automating. Let's suppose you are doing an automation on the onboarding category. We'll see the section as other, and then the object will see a lot of values or objects which are available as a part of API automation. So let's suppose if you want to do and maybe you want to get the records from equipment type, right? Once you do this, you will see these filters, you see these fields already populated. As a part of testing, maybe you can provide that just fetch top 10 values uh, for this specific object that you selected and then simply test it. And it will fetch all the information for you for all the data that is available in there. Right. So this is the data that is coming from the API from SuccessFactors database. With that. And once you do this, so these are all the equipment times that are there. Once you fetch all the records, maybe you can perform the next set of activities, which might include maybe uh, some validation checks, or you want to maybe insert a new record based on some existing business rules that you might have, right? So you can put different sort of activities based on the use case that you're automating and the steps that need to be performed. So let's suppose for update record, you will see the same set of details, but with different set of categories as well as different set of uh, the fields that are required. So once I select this, right, for an example, you will see that the required fields, these are the four required fields in order to perform this specific step in SuccessFactors. And once you do this, you need to provide the values and it will insert this record in the SAP SuccessFactors using API. So pretty easy. Once the connection is established, you can just simply do this and you can provide the variable values over here and then it will be all done. So pretty easy. We don't have to do any UI automation. We don't have to do a lot of selector changes, making it dynamic. It's pretty reliable when we are doing the automation using APIs, using SuccessFactors code. Right. Talking about the other part of automation, which is UI automation. So I'll show you the other piece of demonstration that we have, which will have uh, which will create a position for us. It will log in into SuccessFactors. It will create a new position for us in SuccessFactors. Right. So let me just show you the data. What do we have? Right. So in the input sheet, we will have the requirement, what position has to be created under which uh, employee. So this is the input data that we have, right? Based on this data, the bot is going to create a new position. And once the bot is completed, we'll have execution status as well here, whether it's successful or failed. So before starting, I'll also show you maybe some of the output already, like how it looks like, and then we'll also cover uh, how it works. Right. So this is the one of the data that was uh, executed a while ago, and you see the status, and this is how we also received this report over email as well. So just a small piece of work. Uh, so it follows a given when then approach where we have when all the input data is there, when we have all the credentials, when all the prerequisites are fulfilled, the events that is executed where it logs into, where it launches the SAP SuccessFactors on a browser, and then it navigates to the login screen. And then once it does that, it switch the profile and then go to the manage organization data, to create a new position based on the input data that we have provided in the Excel sheet. Right. And when we talk about UI automation, right, it's all about using the UI selectors, as well as you maybe at times you can use other activities as well, which includes JS, inject JS code. We'll see that how it is done. But before doing this, let me just simply start executing this bot and then see the bot live in action. The bot has launched a new in private or incognito mode of Edge browser, and it will log in into the company ID. It will click on continue. It will log in, and then it will also enter the username and password to get into the SuccessFactors. And once it logs in, the workflow will invoke switch profile. So it will identify the element on the web page. Wherever you see the highlight part, right, where it highlights it in the red, it clicks on that, and it performs whatever is being highlighted is being performed by the bot. So this is the same name that we have provided in the Excel file. It uses that, it fits the profile, and it will create a new position. So your automation is a bit slower because it takes a lot of time to load the web page to find the UI elements. But there might be some use cases where uh, API automation might not always work because of some limitations, but definitely UI automation can be done if you have any use case that needs to interact with the UI automation, right? So now the bot is going to the web page where it will check for the position organization chart and it will create a new position. It will check for all the selectors which are already provided, right? So this job code is coming from the Excel file that we have provided. So since the entries already exist, so it will just simply, it has created this and it will also, the bot will also send an email once it is completed. And let's also see the log. What do we have in the logs? So as you can see, the, the bot is also mentioning in the log that the login status is completed once it was able to successfully log in, and then it was also able to manage or update the data in their success factors, and then at last it was able to successfully send an email as well, right? So this is how the UI automation can be done, and let me just show you the email which the bot has sent and how the report looks like. So this is the email that the bot has just sent, and let's see what do we have. Stuff like that. Right. So this is the Excel file which we have received from the bot once the execution is completed. Talking about the capabilities around UI automation, which includes the selectors, how selectors can be automated. So I'll just keep this open. Uh, let's see this. All right. So we are in the web, in the home page, right? So there are different ways of doing the UI automation. One is using the selectors, the other is using maybe JavaScript inject script, or we can also use .NET if required at some places. So API is already done. So let's suppose if you want to do the UI automation, right? How UI automation is done is basically that we have to create a browser scope. We need to indicate the browser. In order to use the UI automation, you need to have extension installed for UiPath, which requires UiPath browser automation extension, be it Edge or Chrome or any other browser that you use. The extension has to be installed, and you can install the extension directly from here in the tools section based on the browser that you use. Once you attach the browser, let's suppose if you want to maybe, let me just simply switch the profile, maybe become self. Let me just switch back to the original account and then simply use the selectors to switch to a different profile. So let's suppose we already have this web page open on the login page. So this is similar to the UI automation that uh, we usually do in UiPath. And as a best practice, it is always recommended to use the object repository. Right. So since we want to select, we want to click this user icon over here, and then you can edit the selectors. You can use the UI Explorer to uh, select to make it more dynamic, so that if it even if changes, even if the account changes, the bot will be able to identify the element. Right? And if you see here, these are all the selectors values that are available. We can select based on, let's suppose, if the title will remain like this, the browser will be like this only. If you see, right, so these whatever values that is here might not change because it all has a value. But if you see anything that is dynamic, maybe let's suppose some username is there, or maybe some URL portion of which can change. You need to make it dynamic based on the requirement. So let's suppose if I click this, once I click this, the next is using maybe the proxy now, right? So the next step will be to use another click and proxy now. Again, check for the selectors if anything can be made dynamic, since we need to have a proxy now. And I think this looks good as of now. We don't need to make any changes. And once we do this, we need to enter the target. But let's just simply run this one as of now, and then see. So the demo that we just showed, right? It was using a combination of UI automation with different set of activities. If you see, it has clicked on RC, it has clicked on proxy now, it was highlighted. So this is how UI automation is done. And it is relatively slower than the API automation, but yeah, it does the work. Uh, but based on the use case, we can do the automation. Talking about the other part of UI automation capability is injecting the JavaScript basically, and how it is done is if you are good with JavaScript or XPath, to how to identify the XPath of any web element on a web page, you can just simply call a function. You can create a function in the activity itself and then simply invoke it. And maybe if you want to click it, if you want to check for element exist, so there are different set of activities that you can do if you are familiar with JavaScript. So just to give you an overview, let's suppose if uh, so let's suppose if I want to click on view my profile, right, using in JavaScript. So I will not use the regular UI automation activities to click this, but maybe I will just have I have installed an extension which is called Selector Hub, which helps to get the JavaScript path or X path, which can be used to do the some automation which is not possible using the regular activities which are available. Right? So let's suppose if I use if I copy the JS path of any of the particular activity or any element that we see here, and just copy that X path, I can. So this in order to use in order to call a JS script in UiPath, we need to provide it the value in the function. You need to create a function, and then you need to create you need to provide whatever query that you are going to do inside this function, and then you'll simply invoke it. And so as of now, the path that we have, right? Let's suppose if I want to maybe so for Vima profile, right? So if you can see that this is the JavaScript path, I'll show you here. This is currently in the shadow DOM. But if you see, right, so this is what we will get once we get the JavaScript path. And once we provide this, there is always a function that we can invoke um, for any of the activity that you want to do. Let's suppose if you want to use the element address, if you want to click, if you want to check, maybe if you want to get the text from a web page, you can use that. So in order to call this function, we need to use the JavaScript in the code, and just when I click on this, right, when I run on this, it will simply click on this one and it only has one activity, so it will just simply click on view my profile and that's it. So instead of using the selectors, we are using XPath to do the UI automation. And we can use a combination of both in order to achieve end-to-end solution. If something is not possible using the regular activity, you can always use the other possible ways of doing the UI automation. So that's clicked on the my profile. So that was about the types of automation and the demonstration of how success factors can be automated using APIs as well as using UI automation. So uh, shift to the slides again. Yeah.
Yeah,
Any queries?
yeah. Before queries, Rahul, as a customer, as an MVP, as a SAP customer, success factors, UiPath. I mean, this group would love to understand your journey, how you got started, and I mean, just share some insight with this group that hey, if they want to start any automation using SAP on SAP or success factors, how do they get started? And please enlighten us with your journey.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Pankaj. Yeah, that's what I was coming off mute. I think what Umesh had talked about is pretty much, I think, resonates with how we had um, followed a similar. So we've been an SAP customer for like I think 20 years now. SuccessFactors customer. We had a pretty decent user experience in terms of SAP and its product, and we were pretty familiar with how to navigate on the SAP GUIs and all the limitations and other stuff that brings in as part of SAP product. But then when we started our journey on the RPA using UiPath for both SAP financials as well as for the success factors, we definitely started slow. We didn't pick any big bang use cases. We picked up have some low hanging automations, even on the success factors. Let's just I'll only keep to success factors because just to keep on the track with this topic. But even for success factors, we had picked couple of low-hanging use cases where, like Umesh was showing, we wanted to create a position in the system, or we wanted to at least pick up some data extracted out of the employee central in terms of the existing cost centers information or some other employee-related attribute. For some countries, we had a requirement to extract some of these specific data points. I think we started with those kind of a thing. But our starting was definitely using the SAP browser automation. We did not consider the APIs to begin with because at that time it's been a couple of years now. The APIs were not matured enough to begin with. So we started definitely using the browser automation, then on click automation, type into activities and all that stuff, right? Which worked fine to some extent, but then as you can imagine, over time as things get changed, as browser get changed, the selectors becomes very critical. To Mesh's point, we have to be very careful that your selectors are not hard coded, your selectors are not set to a certain version of a browser or a setting of a browser, so you have to make it very dynamic. I think that caused some challenge for us, but then we started our transition over to APIs, both on the SAP side and on the success factors. That definitely improved, changed the entire definition of the automation, the performance, and then the amount of the work and the volume which we can process using APIs. And the other benefit it gave us now is that we are able to push our automations more as an unattended on a virtual machines. We heavily use AWS workstations for all this remote work. So we were able to push all our attended automation to a remote machine, which is periodically running behind the scene. And that made it easier. The APIs made it easier. Otherwise, it was a challenge to run the SAP GUI or the SAP browsers on a remote machine when the machine is not up and the screens are not up. So I think it's definitely has changed as UiPath is introducing new packages, new improvements in the activities. It has definitely helping a lot in our day-to-day processes. So, but I highly encourage, as Umesh said, start with slow, start low hanging, get with something from a very basic use case, at least just to get a feel of how the automation can work in conjunction with your day-to-day human activities, and then take a next step based on that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. I know there are a couple of questions. Is I know Rahul answered one of them in the chat itself, but the other is Umesh and Rahul, what are the different possible exceptions can be occurred while working with SuccessFactors API connector and how to handle it?
Right. And I think it's a very genuine question because whenever you're doing API automation, there are some standard exceptions that might occur where the timeout issue can happen, right? When you are calling an API and uh, when because the server is not available or maybe it did not understand the request that we are sending, maybe some issue with the data that we are sending. You might see different set of responses. It can have 500 internal server errors where the server did not understand the request or maybe a timeout issue. All the data that you are trying to search is not available there. Right? The query that you provided, the data itself is not available. So you might see a 404 error where the data is not available, right? And I guess um, that would be pretty much it as the mostly, but we have not seen any challenges as such with the APIs because you see the success factors is hosted on cloud already there. So the APIs that you see are residing on the FTP server. So it is usually available and we have not seen any issues as of now. But yeah, as a best practice, you should be implementing and then retry mechanism if needed.
Great. I see Rahul answering some of the questions in the chat itself, so that is good. Um, the other one request is can we have sessions on test managers AI capabilities within UiPath? So we are coming up with a AI series, but since we are doing this 8-part series and this is the third one, we have to complete this and then we'll do a AI series. So we'll keep everyone posted on that. Absolutely, that's a definitely a hot topic right now within the UiPath ecosystem. So we'll definitely do a series on the AI capabilities and test managers. Umesh, we have a session on test suite as well, right? So we will definitely cover some of that test manager capabilities within that series, session. So I mean, that has not been posted yet because we are doing um, the 4-part series before the forward conference of UiPath, and then the next 4 will happen after that. So we'll be posting the test suite series once forward is done. So absolutely, you'll be able to join that session. So another question is the API works only on cloud environment or we can use on-prem environment for success factors? Umesh?
So as of now, the documentation that is available, right, it is seems to be available only for the cloud side. And since it also includes the production, review, and sales demo environment, right? So it is provided by SuccessFactors, and it has data center available as well. So it's all cloud as of now. There is no available for on-premise. So there's a data center associated with all the APIs that we see. So we have different set of servers for each environment, and it's all hosted on cloud.
Great. Any other questions on the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask questions live? Okay, cool. So thank you everyone for joining this session. Hopefully, oh, there is one more, sorry.
Yeah, I just put this in here. It's oh, you can, I think Tapas had one too about how we can create APIs, but I also put that they can join the California chapter and then they'll get all the announcements of the sessions that you mentioned.
And to that question which Tapas asked, the APIs APIs would need to be created in the source system purpose, not in the UiPath is only providing the activities to call the APIs you're connecting to. Is it SAP SuccessFactors or any other system? So you would need to work with the development team on that system to either identify a standard APIs or to create the custom APIs as needed for your use case. But the APIs must be defined in the source in the system you're connecting to.
And then Umesh has posted a link in the chat where you can find some of the SAP SuccessFactors APIs. So thanks, Umesh, for that documentation link. All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. That was a great session today. I appreciate you guys all delivering this. And also just make sure, everybody, that you grab everything that's in chat. You'll see where you can register for next week's session, where you can get the recording for today's session, and then the other information that we put in there as well. So I'll just give you a minute to do that. But thank you, Rahul, Pankaj, and Umesh. This was great. And thank you, everybody, for coming. I look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.